In today's video, we're going to be putting 2 Immortals versus 100 humans in WorldBox. We're going to put a wall between them and give them 250 years to build up their civilizations before taking the wall down and seeing what happens. But first, we've got to set up our world. And make sure that we have a wall separating our 2 groups. Now let's give them a nice diverse range of biomes, with the grass biome, the savanna biome, the maple biome, the permafrost biome, and the swamp biome. Next, let's give them a bunch of resources like stone and gold and silver so they have enough resources to build. And then we'll give them some animals like chickens, sheep, and cows. We'll also hook them up with some fruit bushes for food. Now let's place our 2 Immortals and the rest of our 100 humans. And then we'll give our 2 Immortals the Immortal trait so they're unable to die from old age. Let's also make sure to name each of the kingdoms so that we know which one is which. And as we can see, our group of 100 mortals has spread out evenly across the land, with most looking for resources and other types of materials to start building their kingdom. While others take a different approach and just lie down and sleep, a lot are just set up around the campfire having chats and getting to know one another. When it comes to the Immortals, they're setting up a campfire too, as well as a foundation for a future home. But it seems like only one is doing most of the work as the other one is just sleeping. And while the Immortals sleep, the mortals are busy setting up their civilization, finally constructing their first house and setting up a resource deposit for future buildings. But before the mortals could even set up more than one house, the savannah had spawned a wild forest fire heading in their way, and at this point it doesn't even seem like they've noticed it's coming directly their way. But eventually it got so close they had no choice but to respond, sending a group of people to try and extinguish it with water, and after many attempts, they'd finally be able to put out the fire and eliminate that threat. And after 15 years, the mortals have set up their camp pretty nicely. They've built a bank, a windmill, and a town hall, along with some watchtowers for defense. But the Immortals aren't too far behind. As their population grows, they've also set up a windmill, a few houses, and some tents. And after a few more years, it seems like the mortals have even set up a fighting arena, which would be useful in practicing for when they meet the Immortals. And after about 25 years, it seems like both civilizations are finally starting to expand into the savanna biome. But before they could build into the savanna biome at all, disaster struck for the Immortals, as one of the 2 original members, given the Immortal trait, was slain by a bison in the permafrost. Now, being immortal does make you live forever, but it only protects you against things like old age. All the Immortals can still die regularly to things like animals. And it'll be interesting to see how the Immortals face this controversy, as one of their 2 original leaders are now dead. And as we can see, after about 100 years, obviously the death of their leader didn't stunt their progress too bad, as both civilizations have expanded and made their way into the savanna and maple biomes. They both are avoiding the permafrost as it is a much more harsh and volatile environment, but they're very spread out and have a lot of homes, as well as a lot of farms to support their people. And along with all this new infrastructure, they're also adding new statues to honor their gods. And while resources and peace are at an all-time high now, things could change very quickly once the wall comes down. And after 250 years, each kingdom is built up very nicely. And not much has changed in the last 150, with some new buildings and resources being added. The main difference is their population, as both grew tremendously. And although the mortals started with almost over 100 more people, in year 250 the Immortals have much more population than them, which is crazy since they only started out with 2 people. Finally, it's time to take down the wall and see what happens. And at the beginning, it seems like they're getting along quite well. As people from each civilization go over to the other side, these ones are even talking about love and friendship. Maybe everything will be alright, and these 2 civilizations can coexist in the same world and prosper for many decades to come. But here we observe the first conflict of the entire video, and this one little gesture would spark an entire war between the 2 civilizations, with the Immortals immediately fighting back and sending an envoy of troops to the mortal side. And after this one altercation, war would break out throughout the entire border, with civilians and soldiers fighting in the streets where the wall once was. And at this point, chaos had fully ensued, with total war breaking out on each side of the 2 kingdoms. And the Immortals had gained the upper edge, claiming the bottom left corner of the Immortals' land. They were powerless against the Immortals' attacks. Was being immortal really the secret to winning a war? Maybe so, but as the Immortals attacked the right side, the Mortals were forced into a bottom right portion of their land. And with an Immortal army ensuing attack, it was only a matter of time before they would get completely wiped out. And with an Immortal invasion threatening the Mortals' extinction, would they be able to pull off a miracle and somehow survive and defeat the Immortals? The answer was no. They got completely wiped out. And not only did the Immortals have better traits, but they also had a higher population. Somehow starting with 100 less people, at the end, they still had almost over 150 more people. And now that the war was over, there was only one thing left to do. And that was to see how immortal these Immortals really were.